Welcome to the Breakthrough Leadership Summit. As I've thought about today and what this conference is about, I've thought back to a story in Georgia's past that's related in some ways by analogy to what we're doing here on this day. Back in the early 1930s, farmers were struggling to sell their produce for prices that would allow them to pay for their farms and support their families. And it was in that context in early 1931 that a southeastern Georgia farmer named Moses Coleman planted his very first crop of onions with the hope of being able to meet his financial obligations and feed his family. Well, something strange and completely unexpected happened. When he harvested those onions later in 1931, the onions weren't hot like they were supposed to be. They were sweet like they're not supposed to be. But what appeared to be a problem turned out to be a boon to Georgia agriculture. Within a relatively short period of time, Moses Coleman was getting $3.50 per 50-pound bag of onions, which was a pretty sizable amount in the Depression era. But his success raised all sorts of questions, right? Two of the primary questions were, why are these sweet? Another question was, why, if we grow these very same onions elsewhere, are they still hot and not sweet, right? Well, the secret was in the soil. It's only within a 20-county region in southeast Georgia that you have the soil conditions that allow for the growing of what we now know as Vidalia onions. It's in the soil. So I like that story. It's a wonderful story at so many levels about innovation and resilience and hard work. It's a great story from Georgia's unique history. It kind of describes something from which farmers and foodies benefit to this day, and presumably makers of breath mints benefit. But I also like that story as an analogy, right? The secret was to the success and to the sweetness of Vidalia onions was found in the conditions, the soil, in which those onions were planted and grown. Now, it's easy, but I would actually argue it's also very important for us to be very aware of Georgia's macro issues, right? The big issues. Statewide economic numbers, statewide student performance, statewide criminal justice issues. We should be aware of those things, largely because they impact what's happening on the ground, right? It's not just this high level these high level issues. They impact our lives and communities. But we can't just look at those issues and not consider the conditions that often have more to do with our well-being than anything else. And that is the soil, right? The conditions of our home and our community, right? This conference is about that soil. This conference is about our communities. It's about people like you who are touching lives on a day-to-day basis, people who are coming alongside others in a community to cultivate the conditions in which people are more likely to be able to overcome challenges, to rebound from past mistakes, or to find that pathway that allows them to discover in a richer, more meaningful way their dignity, the dignity that is within every individual, right? Today, you are going to hear from a whole host of speakers and great leaders who are doing wonderful things along the very lines of what we're talking about. These are people who are very concerned about meeting people's immediate needs, right? There are people who are suffering, and one way to address those needs is by meeting immediate need. But we must do more than just soften the fall. We must facilitate the climb. And what we have here are a lot of people who are really focused on that. You are going to hear from people who refuse to throw their hands up in surrender to issues that are difficult. They're ready to stare them down and to work hard and make a difference. You're going to be blessed to hear from them. So as we go through this program, I would ask you to kind of keep your eyes on three things. Number one, pay attention to success. Pay attention to what's working, right? Don't just hear stats, think about people, right? But pay attention to what's working. It'll inspire you, it'll encourage you, it'll make you realize that there's a lot more that can be done that's positive. Number two, connect with the people in the room. You are likely to meet people who will benefit from knowing you and vice versa. So connect with people in the room. There may be ways that you can partner, and that's the third thing. Consider the ways in which you might engage in ways that you haven't considered yet. Those are the things I would hope that you'd be looking for.